Good afternoon. It's Friday. I will be starting our next book, the book of Ruth. We will be reading chapters 1 and 2, and now we will begin. During the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. A man with his wife and 2 sons went from Bethlehem of Judah to dwell in the territory of Moab. The name of that man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem and Judah. They entered the territory of Moab and settled there. But Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died. There only she was left, along with her 2 sons. They took wives for themselves, Moabite women. The name of the first was Orpah, and the name of the second was Ruth, and they lived there for about 10 years. Both of the sons, Mahlon and Chilion, also died. Only the women were left, without her 2 children and without her husband. Then she arose along with her daughters-in-law to return to the field of Moab, because while in the territory of Moab, messed that up. Then she arose along with her daughters-in-law to return from the field of Moab, because while in the territory of Moab, she had heard that the Lord had paid attention to his people by providing food for them. She left the place where she had been, and her 2 daughters-in-law went with her. They went along the road to return to the land of Judah. Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "Go, turn back, each of you, to the household of your mother. May the Lord deal faithfully with you, just as you have done with the dead and with me. May the Lord provide for you so that you may find security, each woman in the household of her husband." Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. But they replied to her, "No, instead we will return with you to your people." Naomi replied, "Turn back, my daughters-in-law. Why would you go with me? Will there again be sons in my womb, that they would be husbands for you? Turn back, my daughters. Go, I am too old for a husband. If I were to say that I have hope, even if I had a husband tonight, even more if I were to bear sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you refrain from having husbands? No, my daughter. This is more bitter for me than you, since the Lord's will has come out against me." Then they lifted up their voices and wept again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth stayed with her. Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-law is returning to her people and her gods. Turn back after your sister-in-law." But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to abandon you, to turn back from following after you. Wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do this to me and more, even so, if death separates me from you." When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped speaking about it. So both of them went along until they arrived at Bethlehem. When they arrived at Bethlehem, the whole town was excited on account of them, and the women of the town asked, "Can this be Naomi?" She replied to them, "Don't call me Naomi, but call me Mara, for the Almighty has made me very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has returned me empty. Why would you call me Naomi, when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has deemed me guilty?" Thus Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, returned with her from the territory of Moab. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Now Naomi had a respected relative, a man of worth, through her husband from the family of Elimelech. His name was Boaz. Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field so that I may glean among the ears of grain behind someone whose eyes I might find favor." Naomi replied to her, "Go, my daughter." So she went. She arrived, and she gleaned from the field behind the harvesters. By chance it happened to be the portion of field that belonged to the Boaz, who was from the family of Elimelech. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem. He said to the harvesters, "May the Lord be with you." And they said to him, "May the Lord bless you." Boaz said to his young man, the one who was overseeing the harvesters, "To whom does this young woman belong?" The young man who was overseeing the harvesters said, "She is a young Moabite woman, the one who returned with Naomi from the territory of Moab." She said, "Please let me glean so that I might gather up grain from among the bundles behind the harvesters." She arrived and has been on her feet from morning until now, and has sat down only for a moment. Boaz said to Ruth, "Haven't you understood, my daughter? Don't go glean in another field. Don't go anywhere else. Instead, stay here with my young women. Keep your eyes on the field that they are harvesting and go along after them. I've ordered the young men not to assault you. Whenever you are thirsty, go to the jugs and drink from what the young men have filled." Then she bowed, face to the ground, and replied to them, "How is it that I have found favor in your eyes, that you notice me? I am an immigrant." Boaz responded to her, "Everything that you did for your mother-in-law after your husband's death has been reported fully to me, how you left behind your father and your mother and the land of your birth and came to the people you hadn't known beforehand. May the Lord reward you for your deed. May you receive a rich reward from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge." She said, "May I continue to find favor in your eyes, sir, because you have comforted me and because you've spoken kindly to your female servant, even though I'm not one of your female servants." At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, eat some of the bread, and dip your piece in the vinegar." She sat along the harvesters, and he served roasted grain to her. She ate and was satisfied and had leftovers. Then she got up to glean. Boaz ordered his young men, "Let her glean between the bundles and don't humiliate her. Also pull out some of the bales for her and leave them behind for her to glean, and don't scold her." So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed what she had gleaned. It was about an ephah of barley. She picked it up and went into town. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She brought out what she had left over after eating her fill and gave it to her. Her mother-in-law said to her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? May the one who noticed you be blessed." She told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, "The name of the man whom I worked today was Boaz." Naomi replied to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed by the Lord, who hasn't abandoned his faithfulness with the living or with the dead." Naomi said to her, "The man is one of our close relatives. He is one of our redeemers." Ruth the Moabite replied, "Furthermore, he said to me, 'Stay with my workers until they have finished all of my harvest.'" Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, so that men don't assault you in another field." Thus she stayed with Boaz's young woman, gleaning until the completion of the barley and wheat harvest, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Now I'm going to read from our other book. From Ruth 1 through 2. Sometimes when times are darkest and you feel most hopeless, the most beautiful words that someone can tell you are, "Where you go, I will go." And it's the best thing you can tell someone. What can the story of Ruth and Naomi teach you about loyalty and fidelity? I hope that the rest of your evening is blessed, and we'll see you tomorrow for the next half of Ruth.